Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome. Today we are going over our first free response questions of the year. Sadly to say, if you're watching this video and you haven't taken the free response yet, the highest grade you can get is an 80. So, in saying that, you know, if you feel like you're going to watch this, get all the right answers, and complete it now, you are sadly mistaken. All right, so let's go over the instructions one more time. This is on Canvas. So below you will find 2 free response questions. Each question has 5 bullet points that require a response. You can't just leave one of the bullet points alone. If you do, you don't get any credit for it. So to answer the free response and get full credit for each bullet point, you will need to define, underline, and apply it to the prompt. Now, this is a little bit different than the AP exam because I'm asking you to define it. And that's just good practice, okay? So if you just apply it, yeah, you still might get credit for it, but for me, personally, I really do want to see you define it just so I can see the definition there, okay? Separate your bullet points by treating your responses like mini paragraphs. How I write these instructions, it allows for the grader to clearly see the beginning and end of each term's response. Do not use bullet points in your response. That is bad. Okay, this isn't a bullet point thing, this is an actual free response, so it doesn't necessarily, it might have the feel of bullet points, but you need to leave them alone, leave them out of there. When you use the term in your definition, underline it so the grader can easily find it. Remember, I want you to make it as easy as possible on the AP grader to grade your exam. It could be the first exam or the 1000th exam of the day for them grading. Either way, I want it to be the easiest one of the day for them. That's what we're going to give. Okay? So I want you to underline the term so they can easily find what you're talking about. Do not word vomit. This is different than other AP exams, other AP free responses. And everything else, you're professing your knowledge. You are just giving everything that you know about this one single thing in, you know, A Push or AP World or whatever. That's a lot of writing. Here, now, is not a lot of writing. They want you to be concise and simple and to the point. And again, that's going to make it easier on the grader. That's what we're going to do. All right, so free response number 1. This is our first question out of 2. In our assignment. So imagine that you're attending a dance performance. There are hundreds of dancers performing over the course of the evening. Frequently, there are 20 to 30 dancers in each number. Using the terms below, explain how these would fit into your evening, allowing you to make more sense of the dancers you are viewing. So again, we're kind of looking at this, and what we truly need to do is apply every single one of these terms to the prompt. But again, I'm asking you to define, underline, and apply. So let's look at the first term, figure-ground relationship. So figure-ground relationship is a Gestalt law of perception, which means how we see things as a whole and not the parts. Okay? So a Gestalt law of perception where the human focuses on the figure, which would be the dancers, and the background, which would be the stage and the set design. So that would be less prominent. So again, figure ground means the figure is actually in front and everything else is kind of out of focus. And that's pretty simple to understand. It is in the term itself. So this would help me focus on the movement of the dancer, the most important part of the show, instead of the background. As you can see, I defined figure ground relationship, I underlined it, and then I applied it directly to the prompt. It's simple. Is this a little bit more wordy than what maybe you could have? Yes, it is, but that's because I specifically defined it. All right, we're going over the free response questions. All right, so the law of closure. The law of closure is a perceptual grouping technique that humans use to close or fill in missing parts of a perceived shape or line to create a fully perceived shape or line. That's the definition. While sitting on the balcony, looking down at the dancers, I perceive the dancers as creating a circle when in fact they are just separate entities on the stage. That is the law of closure. I'm looking down on the dancers. There they are. They're in a circular formation. It isn't a true circle. They aren't connected. It isn't, you know, it doesn't have a radius and diameter that's perfect. But I am looking down and I'm perceiving a circle because that's what a human can do. Okay? That's an unconscious, way that we make sense of things in our world. We perceive that it is a circle, even though it is not. So that's the law of closure. Then we move to the next one, which is bottom-up processing, and that is features first. So when we see bottom-up processing, you move from the features first. So size, shape, color, all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be pretty easy to relate to this because I'm guessing it's going to be some sort of uniform, or maybe you see something in the set that just pops out of you because it's more colorful. So bottom-up processing is a perceptual phenomenon that humans experience when they perceive the features of an object before they see the whole. While watching the dancer's routine of a group of 20 dancers, I would see the bright colors of their outfits first if I was processing from the bottom up. Does that make sense to you? That would catch my eye. That's what bottom-up processing is. It is catching your eye. Okay, man, that thing is huge, or man, that thing is bright, or what an odd shape. That would be bottom-up processing. Top-down processing, the opposite of this, is moving from themes down to the parts. So it's like whole to the part. Okay, bottom-up is parts to the whole. All right. Next one, law of proximity, very simple. I mean, if you didn't know what this is, and you just look at these, the words law of proximity, you would hopefully know what proximity means, which means closeness. So the law of proximity is a perceptual grouping technique that humans use to group people or objects that are close in distance as being part of the same group. During the dance recital, the backstage area is full of groups of dancers huddled around each other, patiently waiting for their turn on stage. I perceive that they are in the same dance group because of how close they are huddled together. Okay? So whenever I go backstage, I see these dancers, here they are. I am not saying, that they're grouped together because of their outfits. I'm not saying they're grouped together because they're moving in the same direction or anything like that. I'm saying that they are grouped together because they are close together. As long as you have said that in your response, you're going to get credit for this point. All right, our next one, overlap, interposition. So you might see either one of these terms, overlap or interposition. Overlap is going to be simple to understand because you kind of understand that already. Interposition is just the fancy name for it. So overlap is a monocular cue that helps humans judge distance by establishing that an object that is blocked by another object is perceived as being farther away. Okay, the greatest example I can give to you right here is who's closer to you? Or what is closer to you? The podium or me? Simple. You can understand that easily because you know that I am behind this podium. That is overlap. That is interposition. So, in this dance performance, you would be able to perceive that the dancers in the back of the performance are farther away because the dancers in front of them are blocking my view of them. So simple. All right, moving on to free response number 2. So Darius is a high school student who has been struggling academically because he has had severe trouble staying awake and alert in his classes. He has tried to consume coffee and energy drinks to help him to keep himself awake, but nothing seems to help. Darius finally contacted a doctor who scheduled an overnight sleep study in order to discern the real problem. Explain how each of the following concepts apply to Darius's current situation. So here is our first one. The electroencephalogram. So don't get this confused with an electroencephalograph. The graph, an electroencephalograph, and I know it sounds like it might be the opposite, but that is the actual instrument. Okay, so that is the actual seismic reading, tool that you use. The electroencephalogram, that is actually just a paper readout. Okay, So an electroencephalogram, underlined, is the test used to record brain wave activity. The doctor would probably issue a sleep study that would involve an EEG to assess whether or not Darius is getting the correct amount of non-REM sleep, restful sleep. And that could be why Darius is so tired. Okay? The next one, stimulants. Now there were stimulants mentioned in this prompt. A stimulant is a class of drug that excites the brain and increases brain activity. All right? I'm on one right now. I'm 3 cups of coffee deep. Okay? Should be more by now. I wish I had it in my hand. I can't go get it. So a stimulant is a class of drug that excites the brain and increases brain activity. Darius has tried to use the stimulant caffeine as a remedy to his extreme fatigue, but to no avail. Okay? You just have to mention which one of those things was an actual stimulant. Now, could the energy drink have caffeine in it? It probably does. So you could probably mention that as well. All right, melatonin, the sleep hormone. So melatonin is a naturally occurring hormone of the endocrine system that increases drowsiness and sleepiness as more of the hormone is produced. Now, we know that we produce the hormone later in the day. It is actually suppressed by the endocrine system during the day, but everything has to be regulated for that to really happen. So Darius probably has a problem producing melatonin because of his continued use of stimulants. Specifically the caffeine and the coffee/energy drink he has been consuming all day while trying to counteract his fatigue. So he's trying to stay awake in class, he can't do it, he's drinking coffee, he's drinking energy drinks, and what that is doing, caffeine, what caffeine does, it naturally suppresses melatonin and another hormone called hypocretins, and guess what? He can't produce. He doesn't produce melatonin on a regular schedule, and that is why he might not be getting sleep, which may be causing his fatigue. All right, the amygdala, amygdala. The amygdala is a brain structure that is the center for emotional responses. You should know that by now. If you don't, you probably haven't attended a Zoom or done any work on Canvas the entire year. With the amygdala, emotional responses, especially fear. So it's part of the limbic system. It's really connected to the hippocampus. Again, emotion and memory are really, really tied together. So when Darius doesn't get enough sleep, his amygdala becomes overactive, and he becomes more reactionary to emotionally triggering stimuli. This is a problem that I think a lot of young people have, is they don't get enough sleep, and then they do become reactionary to certain stimuli because, again, they don't know this, but their amygdala, their emotional center of the brain, is sort of inflamed at this point. It actually needs rest. There's been tons of studies that say this. So when you don't get enough sleep, even for one night, the next day you are more emotionally reactive to everything in your environment, and especially triggering stimuli, like it says here. So this is just how it would affect Darius the next day for his lack of sleep, and also it would cause him, dealing with this in your own brain causes mental fatigue as well. And then the suprachiasmatic nucleus. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is a cluster of neurons within the hypothalamus that controls the daily sleep/wake cycle of the human. Darius could possibly have trouble staying awake during the day because his sleep-wake times differ greatly from day to day. We were just talking about this before I made this video. Your brain is an ancient system in a modern world. When you mess up just one night of sleep, the next day, not even the next day, during that night of sleep, when you go to bed, usually at 9:30, and again, I'll post a video about this later. When you go to sleep at 9:30 every single day, and then you end up going to sleep at 11:30 or 12:30 for just one night, your brain is tricked into thinking that something is wrong. something is wrong. Something happened that day, something threatening happened that day. This is why we have stayed up later. And if we have stayed up later, and we think that something terrible has happened, then we are going to make sure that we don't get restful sleep during the evening to make sure we're safe during the evening. We're going to keep ourselves just a little bit awake, just a little bit aware during the evening when we should be sleeping. Now, do you think you're going to get restful sleep if that happens consistently? No, not at all. So this could cause his circadian rhythm to be thrown off. And when your circadian rhythm is thrown off, you're thrown off. So Darius would have, again, a very tough time, if he wasn't getting if his suprachiasmatic nucleus wasn't doing its job being consistent. All right, and that's it. Again, if you just watch this video and you think to yourself, ooh, I'm going to do the free response now, I'm going to get every single one of them right, congratulations, I hope you're going to get every single one of them right. But I know one thing, you're not going to make 100. All right, hit me with that theme song and let's get out of here.